Note your attendance. I heard JD's announcement, but maybe I was a little bit confused about the Children's Day. Mel, maybe the kids have some clarification on the Children's Day coming up.
Thanks, Lee. So we've already, thank you. We've already started getting some interest in what's going on. But I'm curious. The children wanted to tell you about something that they're working on. Megan?
Hello, everyone. This summer we will be going to Bridgeport Camp. It's expensive, so we're trying to raise money. And to do so, we will be selling smocks. With your smocks, you can paint in them, you can do pottery in them, or anything you like. Clearly there's some mistake. We are not selling smocks. We're selling socks. Oh, there seems to be some confusion. We are not selling smocks, or we're not selling socks. We are selling stocks. We will be having a dinner after we get back from Bridgeport Camp. We'll be making the food and serving you. Then we'll tell you all about camp. After the meeting, we will be outside so you can answer questions or even donate if you'd like.
Thank you. Well done. It's so exciting. We haven't sent children to Bridgeport, I think, in 3 or 4 years. So we have 6 children going this year. So I'll tell you more about that here in a few minutes when it's my turn. But thank you for your continued support, and look forward to talking to you in a few minutes. Oh, Lee says I can go. We're sending 6 children to Bridgeport Camp, and they go July the 11th through 15th. All children. We're not sending any youth this year, but so we would like to do some fundraising. So we have 2 things going on. One is today, we're starting with the stock sales, and we'll have a dinner. Mark your calendars. It's going to be on Sunday, August the 14th after church. And the children will be presenting their time at camp, and we'll be celebrating. And we'll also do a send-off for them on July the 10th. That's a Sunday. Their first day at camp is Monday, July the 11th. So we'll have a send-off on the 10th, and we'll have a celebration on August the 14th. So pretty exciting. We'll also be asking for some of you who are willing to mentor them. We can write them letters and notes. We can even send them care packages. So more on that to come in the next couple of weeks. If you're interested in that, please come see me. I would really like for you to get to know the kids. I'm going to try to have them come out more at the end of the service so you can meet them and greet them and get to know the ones, all of them, but the ones especially who are going. So the other thing that we're doing today, first of all, thank you for everyone who came out. We had 3 children that participated at VBS at Christ United Methodist Church. Since we're supporting PT Family Fun Night, we chose not to do VBS, so we usually go over there and participate in their VBS. And one of the ways that we support them is we provided food for their volunteers. So I had quite a few people that came out and helped. If you came out and helped in any way in that, can you please raise your hand or stand? Couldn't have done it without you. We fed 75 people, so thank you so much. They were very appreciative of the food, and it was pretty good. So we have leftovers. We have beef tacos, chicken tacos, and beans, and avocado cups for sale. It's $5 for a packet, and it's frozen, so you can warm it up anytime. You can make 2 to 3 tacos per package, so $5 a package. We'll be out in the back after the church meeting. And thank you so much for your continued support of the children's program. We will try to get them out and about so you can get to see them and get to know them, especially before they go to camp. Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. Any questions for the children's as Mel's walking back? All right, next on the list is Tom at SPRC chair.
Just a couple of things. We have not forgotten the office. We have interviews with 2 people. When JD gets back, we'll have it at our next board meeting on the 27th. Also, you may be aware the church voted to sponsor Adam's internship, so that's ongoing. The other thing is, bad news. I've always been impressed with our church and our willingness to do things. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Leo tried, we tried, it didn't work out for a variety of reasons, not because of him, it's mainly because of the situation in which we're in our community. So Leo is no longer with us. He's going to pursue his other activities, and he has many. So just want to wish him the best and thank him for his time. And that's all I have, unless you all have a question of me. Okay.
Thanks, Tom. And now let me pass it over to Doc, who has trustees and works with Larry in building and maintenance.
Thank you, Lee. I have a very short list here. I've got 6 items, not necessarily listed in importance, but we had some air conditioner problems, and in the past we would call the air conditioner people, and they would be out in a day or two, and everything would be fixed, including motors and things. This time we got caught up in the supply chain problem. So instead of having just a matter of a few days, it was several weeks before we have all the parts. We're still waiting for a control panel in the JD's office. It's somewhere in a truck, probably parked in a truck stop somewhere out in West Texas. So yeah, it should be here shortly.
I may not know this, but we have a pastoral son.
And hopefully when you get back from vacation, that thing will be fixed. But I don't know if any of you noticed.
Have Jan order some Amazon, we'll be here tomorrow.
Okay. Didn't think of that. But anyway, I don't know if you've noticed, but we're slowly replacing the hallway lights. Those lights date back to the early days of the church. They're decades old. And we find that you cannot find the plastic covers for them anymore. The lights themselves are more and more difficult to find, if not impossible. So we're slowly replacing all of those with more efficient, modern units. We've had some problem with our security system. When we when the society transitioned, 4G to 5G, the manufacturers and people who look after our security system failed to realize that our system wouldn't adapt immediately to the new 5G thing. So they had to scurry about, design a circuit board, and I believe that's in place now, and we're resolved there. Yes, question? Did I hear a question? Okay. Let's see, so the security system I think is pretty well updated. Microwave tower, just for your information, the people who manage the microwave system. The microwave cell tower, thank you. Decided they would update that system. That's a type 3 problem, and one that we can't do a great deal about, but you notice they had all the equipment out there. They took all those transmission antennas down on the ground. They did something to them, and now they've lifted them back up on the tower, so they should be finished very shortly. And if you have any questions or further things, Larry, did I leave anything out? Okay. So other than those items, I think we're in pretty good shape for the moment. So until the next problem comes along. But thank you.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks for your and Larry's hard work. Don't have our finance chair today, but overall message, we're in the red so far this year. So messages to get caught up with your giving if you're behind, and then prayerfully consider second mile giving if you are caught up. Any questions on finance? I'll turn it over to JD.
There, I'm unmuted good. I guess first thing is I'll just kind of explain a little bit about what Adam's internship is going to look like, so everybody knows what to expect. And that, as y'all are probably aware, we actually have sponsored his work with Synergy Wesley, the Synergy Wesley Foundation, which is at University of Texas at Dallas. They've expanded over here to Brookhaven College, trying to start chapters at the community colleges within the Dallas college system. And so we gave money last year, to giving it again this upcoming school year to support the student ministry there. Well, he's moving into an internship as he continues through his education at Bright over at TCU, Bright Divinity, and pursues his MDiv on the way towards pursuing ordination in the church. And so he'll be doing that as the large part of his internship, but then he'll also be here helping in worship, much like you've seen him today, but in other ways, and such, and it'll kind of make up his internship as he learns more about ministry in the church and continues to seek to grow the student ministry at the Brookhaven campus of Dallas College as they continue to build that group. And it's started slowly but surely this past semester as Brookhaven finally returned to on-campus classes and such, but it's a long road to hoe. As you may know, if you've heard anything about church planting today, church planting has never been easy, but it's even more challenging than it used to be, because you don't put up a shingle saying, hey, we started a church, and then people just next week come check it out. You got to build relationships and everything, and really work to build that. But anyway, so that's the student ministry and Adam's internship. And then I guess the bigger news is we had annual conference this past week. And let's see, as y'all know, I mean, there's a lot going on with the politics of the church. The Global Methodist Church, which launched on May 1st, and some churches and there's probably some churches in every annual conference in the United States and in central conferences around the globe that are looking to disaffiliate and join the Global Methodist Church. Now, what I clarified with class menagerie today that I want to clarify here is churches are seeking disaffiliation to join the Global Methodist Church. And if you don't know what the Global Methodist Church is, it's basically the conservative side of the United Methodist Church, and churches that have decided that they can no longer be in a denomination, that when it comes to the place and role of LGBTQ plus people in our churches, they can no longer reside in the same denomination with people who disagree with them on that. Even in a situation where local churches and clergy would not be required in any way, shape, or form to violate their own convictions in terms of weddings or ordination or receiving a pastor or anything like that. And so they're moving on and doing their own thing. Now, as they do that, and they're working within the discipline in terms of disaffiliation legislation that was passed at our special session of General Conference in 2019, as they're disaffiliating, it's important to know that as of yet, the polity in the United Methodist Church has not changed. So that's all still there. In terms of the role of LGBTQ plus people in our church, in terms of we're not permitted by the discipline to marry anyone in our churches, and they're not permitted by the discipline to be ordained. Yes?
Define polity.
Polity, church government, church rules. Like you hear me talk at times about the book of discipline. This it would be thick, but it's got really thin paper. It's a really long book about all the rules that govern our United Methodist Church on the global, annual conference, and local level. And so it sets forth the rules of how we operate as churches and what our doctrine and polity are and all that. So none of that's changed yet, but we did this, and I say all that because there was a long discussion about disaffiliation at annual conference this week for churches that are looking to go that route. To my knowledge, I mean, nothing's been published as to who it is or anything like that, but what has been said at meetings that have been held by the bishop and such is that there's at least 8 churches in our conference that are at least considering disaffiliation. And so there's I believe it's a 90-day or 6-month process. I'm forgetting what I read in our workbook and everything, but which they have to go through in prayer and study and discernment before they even vote as a local church as to whether or not they will disaffiliate. And And then typically how it works is the annual conference has to approve that disaffiliation, which we've seen in Georgia. There was 70 out of 800 churches that were approved for disaffiliation. I think I don't know how many it was in Florida, but the news goes up around the denomination about what's happening where. And so that is taking shape, but in terms of any polity changes in the denomination, that does wait until 2024 General Conference. And we don't know what will ultimately change or not yet, but it's been postponed from 2020 to 2021 to 2022, now 2024, because as we're a global church and trying to get people together in a global situation, it's still, although apparently this week it's become easier in some places, it's still really hard to get a visa. That's actually impacted the German school, which was hoping to have more classrooms in our building to accommodate more students. They can't get teachers here because it's too hard for them to get visas in a timely fashion. And then vaccination distribution is just not what it is all around the world as it is here in the United States and other first world areas. Like I explained in class menagerie, I can go to CVS, maybe I might have to schedule 2 weeks out or something like that, but I can go to CVS, Walgreens, wherever, and get a booster nice and easily. It's not the case everywhere. And so as we've kind of wrestled through all of that, General Conference has been postponed until 2024, but as was discussed in annual conference, there is a process in place for churches that have decided not to wait to see what happens at General Conference 2024 and disaffiliate. So as you hear news about that, know that all that has been discussed in the annual conference. There are rules in place put together by the General Conference, and so that's what's going on there. And then in the midst of all that, Bishop McKee had set forth a vision, starting now, but we'll go beyond his retirement because it's for the next year, of how we might reclaim our United Methodist identity. And kind of some notes. He said, we're distinctly Wesleyan. We're built on the progression of discipleship throughout our lives. Like when we talk about sanctification and we talk about how, it's not just pray a prayer and we're done, we're completely saved and everything. It's like, no, this is a progression where we're continually growing by the grace of the Holy Spirit and being transformed into the image of God so that love is what pervades our lives more and more each day. And he mentioned a significant part of our identity is how United Methodists have historically been instruments of good in our communities and around the world. And like I told class menagerie today, you know what, this conflict over LGBTQ plus people in our church has been almost from the beginning. It first started at the General Conference of 1972, the first General Conference after the Methodist Episcopal Church and the United Evangelical Brethren came together to form the United Methodist Church. And so, I guess, sadly, that's been a part of our United Methodist identity too. But that's part of the identity we're hoping to change. To kind of learn to live in peace with one another despite our differences. And then I guess along those lines, Bishop McKee also stressed, we are diverse by God's design. We're diverse because we're created diverse. We're diverse because the Holy Spirit is working among us, and we're discerning things at different times, and we interpret Scripture differently, given different influences within our lives. And as Wesley has challenged us, we stress unity in the essentials, our historical doctrines, and then charity in all other matters. We exercise charity, and so that's part of our identity as well. Now, there's 5 keys in terms of things we will be striving to do as United Methodists to reclaim that identity specific as well. First is to equip the laity to be distinctively Wesleyan in faith and practice, and to fully embrace their role as ministers of the gospel. One way the conference has started to help us do this is they published a free curriculum called Wesleyan Roots, where we can review what our Wesleyan theology is and how it applies to our lives today. And then 2, embrace new ways, both online and in person, for reaching new faces. And by embracing that, the conference is looking to promote, equip churches and clergy and laity, and hold churches accountable for forming these new ways in which we reach new people. Because as was said at annual conference, when people stop coming to the church, The church has to go to the people. You know, and really that's been our call all along, is to go to the people no matter how many people we're going to the church. And so we're looking for ways to go to the people. We're doing that through the student ministry. There's ways that we're seeking to do this, even though we're going through a staff change now, through our ministry to families, or even getting out into the neighborhood like we had hoped to do yesterday, and we will strive to do again, even though it didn't come together yesterday after SAC Summer Hunger, because we've got to go to the people. And it's not just, and it'll help to provide a future for this church, for this local church, but more than providing a future for this local church, it's about accepting the call as disciples to share God's love with everyone and to make disciples for the transformation of the world, as we discuss in United Methodism as our mission all the time. And then another point which Bishop McKee brought out is working to eradicate systemic racism in our church and in the communities we serve. We talked about the inequalities that we see within our church, whether it's appointments or opportunities or what that is, and how the same kind of thing bears out in our communities, and how we can be actively working to bear witness to another way of life that provides hope for all. And one way that we stress this at annual conference is we were invited to attend a lunch. I know I'm going on long, but annual conference was 3 days. What do you. But one of the things we did was at lunch on Monday, over 500 of us attended a lunch called Together We Dine. This is an organized thing where it was based on dialogue and openness and about our experiences and our understanding of things regarding race, and as a safe space where somebody says something you don't like, you weren't going to jump down their throats or anything like that. We were going to have a conversation, and it went down very well in that time. So there's opportunities and materials that the conference is offering to local churches or groups of local churches where they can do this as well. It's called Together We Dine. So we may talk about more of that in the future as we think about ways to reclaim our United Methodist identity. And then 2, live into the spirit of the One Church resolution passed by the annual conference in 2019. You may recall this resolution was passed in response to the legislation that was passed by General Conference in 2019. I think most annual conferences, at least in the United States, if not central conferences around the globe, kind of passed annual conferences in response to this, where a vote was passed to make things regarding our LGBTQ plus neighbors, the legislation and polity related to their role in the church, much more strict, including stricter penalties on clergy who may violate the discipline and related to those matters. And so the One Church resolution is simply what we've talked about already, in which we aspire to be a church that provides space for multiple expressions of our United Methodist and Wesleyan faith, where we do not agree on all things, but we can come together as one. No local church will be asked to violate the convictions of its body in terms of who they receive as a pastor or who is married within their walls or anything like that. Nor will any clergy be asked to violate their convictions one way or the other. And so that's the One Church resolution, and the North Texas Conference is looking to live into the spirit of that resolution. And then there's going to be there's going to be an emphasis to focus conference resources to align with our United Methodist mission, vision, and key strategies. And I've cited the mission already. I don't have the language of the vision right in front of me. I apologize for that. But then the key strategies, that's laid out in our discipline in terms of proclaiming the gospel, gathering people together in the love of Christ, bringing them into the community of faith, and then it kind of cycles back through to proclaiming the gospel again. Those are the strategies that we have in place to reach new people. And so that's really where the thrust of annual conference was. There were a couple of resolutions. One was in response to the Texas legislation, which is still going through the courts. And I saw that yesterday at one of our state courts struck down the legislation regarding trans youth and pursuing parents of trans youth for child abuse and such. There was a resolution opposing that legislation in annual conference that for annual conference delegates, it passed overwhelmingly. And then regarding, elections and supporting free and fair elections for for the entire electorate. And so those are the main resolutions that passed. Others either didn't get to because we ran out of time, or they came to the floor and they failed, or they were referred to other committees. As far as budget goes, the budget was pretty flat. I think they even decreased the conference budget by 1%, which we'll see at least a small benefit from that in our apportionments coming up. And then other than that, I've said a lot. So any questions or thoughts? And then I'll try to post on Facebook any reports from annual conference and stuff if you're looking to read up on that and any happenings that took place there. So, all right.
All right, he opened it for questions. Any other questions or from anything? And if you have questions for JD, get him today because he's going to be gone for a couple weeks. So.
Oh yeah.
Speak now. Speak.
You wait, he'll forget these things.
Okay.
You don't want to overburden him on obligation.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. All right. Well, JD, will you send us with another benediction today?
Sure. And we go forth from here today with God's love and grace, seeking to make disciples for the transformation of the world. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everybody.